Hello and welcome to Tell Us Your Effing Story, a BDC Partners podcast. BDC, a leading franchise and retail advisory firm. Our podcast is by franchisors for franchisors. We go behind the scenes with some of the world's leading franchise industry experts. I'm your host, Bruce McFarlane, my co-host, John Sully, and today we're with Stuart Harley, the CEO of ComputerXplorers UK. Welcome, Stuart.
Thanks for having me.
Righto, Stuart. Tell us your fucking story.
Okay, John, Stuart, it's franchising story. We're not that uncouth here in Australia. We might be convicts, but we're not that uncouth. So firstly, you're out in Australia a month this time. How are you enjoying it?
Absolutely love it. Compared to the UK, even walking out the front door and seeing blue sky, it's amazing.
I don't think there's been a cloud since you've been here. It's been pretty...
No, rumoured first cloud today.
We'll see. Bit of rain today, yeah.
It's just passing though. So how cold is it back home now this time of year?
It's just gone from about 2 degrees. I think when I looked yesterday, they're up to about 9.
Ooh.
So, you want to rush.
Heat right.
Get a rush back.
So we did catch up with you when you were out in Australia last time up in Cairns, and we talked a bit about the ComputerXplorers UK business at the time, but things have progressed a bit. But before we get back to ComputerXplorers and what you've done in the last 9 months or so, we're going to go right back. So where did you grow up? What did you enjoy as a kid? Tell us a little bit about, your background.
Yeah, so I grew up on the south coast of the UK, literally 500 metres from the water. So from the smallest age, I was in the water as soon as possible. It was cold, compared to here, it was cold. Let's just get that out there right now. But throughout the summer, it's lovely. So my passion in life, I started very, very young. I'm a sailor. So always out on the water, water sports, I was out scout groups, those kind of things. I was an outdoorsy child. That was me. Got involved in soccer. I call it soccer because I have to do the translation.
Yeah.
Just get it right.
Football. If anyone from back home watches this, they'll be like, what is soccer?
That's it.
It's stoned.
Kicked back out already. So football, let's get it right. Let's do it properly. In the UK, avid football fan from a very young age. Support a struggling team right now.
Your team's not going that well, yeah.
No.
Who are you going for?
We're going to get relegated, let's be honest.
Who do you go for again?
I'm a Southampton man.
Southampton, right.
In the actual league games, I think we've won 1 this season. So, it's been tough. But last season was good. We're holding last season.
Wow, that's really shit, isn't it?
It's definitely been a rough road.
Wow.
We've got to get into an Aussie rules game. An Aussie rules game before he goes, but I'm not sure if you're going to make it this week. It's 36 degrees on Saturday when I'm going, so... That
sounds amazing. Yeah,
it's way too hot.
Come up with the right suntan.
So what did your mum and dad do? What were they?
So my dad started off his life in the motor trade as a panel beater. Did that for a number of years, and then eventually started his own little business.
Right.
So he developed his own business in alloy wheel refurbishment.
Wow.
Did that. I think he done that in probably about 2008. He started that somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Developed it out. He's got 3 vans on the road. My other brother works for him. They have a good time. They enjoy it. That is them. They're comfortable.
And they go to the house, go to the home or the workplace?
Yeah, so they've all got a van. They turn up. They go to dealerships. They go to people's houses. They turn up, fix the wheels because, my wife will hate me for saying this. She's an avid culprit, so he frequently visits my house.
Gutter banger.
Don't worry, she won't watch.
It's fine.
Yeah. We'll tell her
though. They'll refurbish the wheels on site, and then away they go. So that's right on the south coast of the UK. They do a great job.
It's really nichey, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think just about every one of us needs it. So
yeah, that's right. Good on him.
Yeah.
And what did your mum do? What was her story?
So my mum was in catering.
Yeah.
So did some catering. She did some housekeeping for a while. But yeah, I think the catering was where she found her piece. Sort of event catering, that kind of thing, working. So she was quite happy.
And so when you weren't sailing, playing at the beach, freezing, playing soccer, school, what sort of subjects at school did you enjoy, and what were your sort of early thoughts about career progression when you're a kid, primary school, sort of early school?
Honestly, primary school, I had no idea.
No idea. Just want to play soccer.
I was never driven whatsoever to figure out what I wanted to do. But I was always a science, mathsy, sport child. That
Through
was me.
high school, yeah.
Yeah, I would read, but if you asked me to write a story, that was it. I was gone. Not interested in the slightest. Yeah, that whole creative angle didn't exist to me then for some reason. Kind of found it now. Don't know why, but it did not exist to me then. But absolutely right the way through school, those subjects carried. When it came into moving forward to probably secondary school, and they start telling you got to learn 3 languages and those kind of things, that was tricky. I remember sitting there, and after moment, I had to do French and German as my additional 2 languages. And my end exam in German, you have to do a speaking exam. Yeah, spoke that in perfect French.
Yeah.
Absolute on the moment,
up.
got that completely wrong. And I remember my teacher at the time just sat there laughing at me the whole time. And I'm going, thanks for this. Yeah,
Yeah, German wasn't a strength.
absolutely not.
So you do speak French though?
Little bit. That was a
Right.
long time ago.
Get you in trouble.
In fact, actually, I could probably, if people speak to me, I understand more than I can speak back out.
Right.
So.
Well, that's pretty good. Even though it is French.
And so, and then after high school finished, what was the next steps for?
Went into
study?
college.
Yeah.
Did BTEC Sports Science. Did chemistry. Went down the science road.
Bit of
Wasn't that
computing?
love of college?
No.
No, wasn't me. I had a Saturday job, started earning some money, and went, I like this.
Yeah.
So I got through it, but wasn't a lover. And then left college and had a little Saturday job. Washing some cars to start with. Did my paper round. I had an awful paper round. Like, you guys have some hills, but ours are bad.
Yeah.
I remember I used to have 40 papers to deliver every night. I got paid £6 a week. So do morning and evening,
Wow.
40 papers, and one of them was at just the top of this killer hill on my bike every night. Yeah.
And you did it.
I did it for about 2 years. Kept that up.
Good on you.
The money never went anywhere, but
Yeah.
2 years.
Good on you.
Great time.
So as a nerdy jock, were you still playing soccer then when you were
Yeah,
during
in
all
and
that
out.
time?
I dabbled more 5-a-side than the 11-a-side kind of thing.
Right.
It was time. I just never seemed to have it. As a family, we were always busy, so dedicating to a team didn't really fit. And we were always out. My parents were always taking us on little holidays and little places all around. So it didn't really have time to get into that. But my sailing every Friday night out on the water, that evolved into coaching later on. So I got into the coaching part of it.
Good on you.
Made a little bit of racing in the little dinghies.
Yeah.
That progressed into yachts later on. But
Have you done
all
any
time.
big races?
I did the Round the Island with Hugo Boss, actually.
Right.
That was pretty incredible. Loved
On
that.
a big sort of maxi thing?
Yeah, 45 foot catamaran.
Wow.
The boat's like this most of the time.
Shit.
You come out to Sydney to Hobart, Melbourne to Hobart.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is that the one that people like fall off and
Yeah.
don't get picked up again?
Yeah, that one,
That's right.
Yeah, well, they lost a
Yeah.
couple. But that's all right.
You
Every
gotta
now and
learn
then.
to swim.
At least it's warmer.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about computing? Where did you study computing?
Always had an interest.
Yeah.
But never really studied it.
Yeah.
And it was only when computing I really got into much later on, as
Yep.
part of coming into Computer Explorers, but always had an interest, one of those things that you kind of pick it up and go, oh yeah, I can fix that, not a problem, I can do it. So it was always there in the background, but never really studied it from like a young age or anything like that. It was always the one that, family members would come to you and go, oh, can you fix this for me? Can you fix that for me? And kind of dabbled. So it was always there, an interest. I think it's probably the best way to put it.
And then career. So when was the part-time jobs? So delivering papers and washing cars. What was the first in full-time?
So the first, after college, I went into, from my washing cars, I went into selling cars.
Yep.
They took me in and started doing that. And I did quite well, for a 18-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
I did well. I was earning sort of £40,000 to £50,000 a year as a trainee. Absolutely loved that. But I had this sort of niggle in the back of my head that actually the boyhood dream, it came through. There was always this niggle that I wanted to be a policeman at the time. So shortly after I was doing that, I went and done it. Took a big pay cut. That hurt at the time.
Yeah.
So what would a first-year police officer be earning?
21, 22,000.
Get stuffed.
No, easy. 21, 22,000 comfortably.
Fucking hell.
So you've joined the police force after selling cars. That's a big change.
It was a big change.
Yeah.
And you know what, actually, selling cars gets a bad reputation. You're working for the brand sometimes. There's a lot of, greed's probably the wrong word, but there's very high targets to achieve all the time.
Mm.
but it does teach you some real groundwork skills that, you know, you have to do the basics right every time. You just have to be this really nice consultative person. So, you know, you can take your roots back. I think everyone should do a job like that if anyone's going to do it.
Well, I think that's, you know, one of the things we are interested in people that, you know, you've got delivering papers, riding up hills, like that's commitment. You know, you've got to do it. I'm sure it rained a lot when you're riding up these hills. It's not a great job for £6 a week, you know, sort of thing. So kind of resilience and, you know, consistency, dedicate, keep doing it. And then, you know, selling cars, like that's also, it's tough. Like you get knocked back all the time, you know, and people aren't necessarily nice to you all, you know, like because you're trying to sell to them. But you just need to, you've got to keep showing up every day, and you've got to just follow up as well, because I know everyone's got stories of when they went to buy a car and the person from the car yard that they were going to buy it from never followed them up, and they bought it from the one down the road just because they called them back. Like it happens all the time. And so
sure does.
so if you've started to make some money as an 18-year-old, then you've kind of figured that out. But then what sort of things did you learn? You know, the police training, I assume it's like here, it's pretty full on, that first 12-week course in the academy and all that sort of stuff.
It's
like
solid. It's back to back. It's solid. It's
pretty intense.
A lot of theory, a lot of tests along the way. Obviously, the physical bits at the end when you have to go in and you go in that they put the mace on you and those kind of things. But, you know, it's great. And, you know, you develop some good friendships. You have a great time of it. And I did that for 7 years.
All right.
The end probably wasn't for me.
7 years. So was that out in Southampton, or were you
Winchester? I was based, which is, you know, still on the south, but just a little bit further.
A little bit further up, bit bigger city,
No, it's actually. I would say it's smaller. The actual town centre used to be the capital of the UK. If you didn't know that.
No.
Winchester. A long time ago. Used to be. Tiny little high street, but lots of farmland, lots of. It is huge. The actual Winchester district is huge.
Cool.
So what year was that? So you were there for 7 years. What time?
So I would have left there in 2010. So it would have been 2000. No, mine 2009. I left actually. So 2001, 2002, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So a couple of my mates are ex-cops, and I cycle with, so we got a bit of time to kill. So they used to tell us some pretty funny stories of things, situations that they'd found themselves in. Any that, you know, it's not a PG, you know, like parents' guidance. You don't know if you have that in the UK. PG.
There are some, but you wouldn't want to put them on here.
Okay. We'll leave those ones. Is there any stories that you can, as a cop, you know, where?
What was the funniest ones we went to? Some of the funniest ones, you know, as in that life, you do develop a very dark sense of humour. You know, you have to get through it somehow. And some things we turned up to were often involved inappropriate body parts.
Yeah.
And things happening with them. You know, not to make anyone cringe too much, but the one I went to that always sticks out: picture a golf tee and a bloke and some elastic bands.
Oh, okay, wow!
Okay. I think I can leave it there.
Yeah. Just give me a minute. I'm getting
We'll leave that one alone.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going to talk about your business career for most of it, but what sort of things, you know, it's a very different thing from being in the police force to running your own business. So, like, were there things that you look back and you go, this was something that held me in good stead for my later career, being in the police force?
I think the attention to detail definitely stands out. You know, you have to be very aware, but also, you know, actually in the police force, it's a sales job in itself. You know, there's a lot of people that you have to deal with on a daily basis. You know, you're trying to convince them that sometimes the thing they want to do is not the best thing, and sometimes the other way around as well, that things that they're not doing, that they need to change. So
you're negotiating with someone who's possibly impaired,
Talking
mentally,
someone down,
drunk, whatever.
Absolutely. And they have some incredible mindsets. You know, some of the stories are horrific that they come up with. Some, you know, some are self-inflicted, obviously. But some of them are just real unfortunate circumstances that led to where they are. And you try and help. You try and be reasonable. We used to have this thing called the attitude test, though. You know, we would be lovely. We would help you. But if you failed the attitude test, definitely changed our approach.
Got an ecky thump with the black pudding.
In the US, there's a lot of in the franchising industry, ex-military people as really a good opportunity to as franchisees because they've come out of the military, they've followed a system, and so they've been very disciplined in what they've done. And obviously, because what they do, people die if they don't follow systems, and so. To come into franchising, systems are easy for them and processes. And so I know, ex-police, I haven't, thought about that, but you've gone, and we're going to skip through your other sales, because you did other sales and BD roles, but maybe we'll get to ComputerXplorers, we can come back to that. But, military, you become a franchisee. So you've bought a franchise after having a few other sales roles. So did you think that there were things that come across, as a franchisee, you've bought in, a business that you had to follow a system.
Yeah, so definitely there's the rule book. Yeah. And, there is that rule book. You pick it up, you follow it. And you know what? If you follow it, guess what? It works.
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah, and it worked to a point. The brand I went into, there was a ceiling that anyone ever reached. And when we reached that ceiling and we started going through that ceiling, we suddenly went, well, actually, now we need to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
And we have to change our approach because that rule book kind of stopped here. But that was the ceiling of the franchise at the time. And ultimately, that's what changed from me being franchisee to franchisor, taking that step.
It's really interesting, isn't it, about, and you've run a big franchise system as well, about innovation and like strictness to the rules. But if you follow the rules 80% of the time, are you going to be successful? If you follow the rules 100% of the time, you're going to be successful. If you follow them 100%, you may not be as successful as you would have been if you had followed them 80%
definitely.
and pushed the boundaries a little bit and had some innovation from a franchisee point of view. You've obviously experienced that. Yeah.
If you can take your top franchisees and really work with them to innovate the brand, that's just the mind power of not just you, but all the other guys that are still experiencing it on the ground at the same time. So I think you have to be involved with them. You have to learn with them. It's a journey together. The whole phrase is you're in business together. It's not me dictating to you. Yes, there are some bits that you absolutely have to follow, but there has to be a little bit of flex, a little bit of creativity along the way that I think really help amplify the brand.
And do they run franchise systems well in the UK, do you think?
Definitely a mixture.
Right.
There's some great systems that grow to really great heights. And there's definitely some that, are probably on the lower end. And I'm sure it's the same everywhere. Like we've been to the US recently. I'm over here, I'm learning, I'm seeing lots of different brands at the same time. It's the same everywhere. Like you've got that early days franchisor that's just growing, just learning at the same time. I genuinely believe everyone wants to do the right thing. We're all in it for the right intentions, but, we all make mistakes somewhere along the time. And we do our best, but it's how you recover from those mistakes always.
So let's go back to so you were looking to buy a business. So your first business that you owned, you're a paid employee, you now bought a business. So how did you assess buying a franchised business rather than starting your own business, and and did you look at other franchise systems at the time or just ComputerXplorers?
It had been on my radar for a couple of years that I wanted to do something different. And ultimately, I left my job because I fell out with my boss at the time. I called him a few choice words as I left. We fell out over values, let's be fair. We fell out over values. Okay? But, when your new boss tells you to cut your sales team's bonus that they'd already earned, that's me as values. You don't blow people's money. And that culture, I'd been in that industry, for that automotive industry culture for a long time. And I was gone before 7 in the morning, wasn't getting back till 7, 8 o'clock at night. I wouldn't see the family. Like I had Toby, who would have been 2 at the time, and I just didn't see him. It was, and that for me was a bit changing. That was
didn't sit well.
No, it didn't at all. And I want to make a change. I want to do something for myself.
So how old are you? 20,
36 now.
Okay. Oh no, back when you're making this.
Making this decision, that would have been 6 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So
30.
2019, I made the decision. Yeah.
Yep. So you entrepreneurial side of things, looking at flexibility and controlling your destiny kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. And I looked at a few different things in the automotive space that I knew the franchises around, like smart repair businesses, I like wheels, all those kind of things. But it didn't resonate with me. And I looked at the franchising as absolutely a safer way in. I knew what I knew. I knew that I could spend my time to something, and I knew if I put my heart into it, I could make it successful. But the franchising definitely gave me a real safety blanket to go, actually, these guys are all doing it already. So there's no reason why I can't do that. And that for me was probably the biggest selling point of it all. To go, there's a proven model over here. I just need to go and pick it up.
And in the UK at the time, how big was the system? And
It had 12 franchisees.
yep. And you bought a new one or an existing one?
New one.
Yep.
So there was no one really that close to me. I was out on my own down on the south coast. It was perfect. It really was. It just sat nicely. I did my training in November 19. Went up for 6 days to the middle of the country. We get a nosebleed if we go too far north.
Yeah.
And then decided I was going to have Christmas off. Never done that before. I'd always have to work Christmas. That was my thing. And then January 20, we set the ball rolling.
Perfect timing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant.
Middle of the year. Yep.
Yeah.
We started rolling there. 3 months in, we get shut down.
Oh,
yeah.
COVID. Gee, that was a bit annoying.
Still bites. It really does.
Yeah.
So you didn't have the same COVID lockdowns that we had here in Victoria, but it still was quite disruptive for the first 6 months, I imagine. Did you get any, so you're supporting yourself, you've lost your income.
Yeah, luckily you can adapt and you can flex.
Yeah.
And we converted some of it to online. Schools were still open in the UK for parents of key workers. So I could still work in schools. We had some furlough money that could be used for the team at the time. So there was different things we could do. And in my first year, it wasn't my best first year. Even in the franchising history of this brand, it was not the best first year. We were shut down. I only did 35,000 in my first year, but it was enough to get me through. We didn't laugh about it. But,
You didn't have to sell a child or anything.
No. Well, might have lost that one with my wife. But yeah, first year was tough. But you just think outside the box a little bit, and you go out there, you speak to people. Teachers weren't in schools. We could be. We went in there and done it with the key worker children. We did some online classes, lots of parents homeschooling. We just adapted and flexed the model. And
you ran a lot of the classes yourself at the start?
Yeah. So I really wanted to understand what I was asking the team to do. I've always not done a job that I wouldn't expect someone else to do, if that makes sense. So I wanted to know that if they phoned me, I knew the answers.
So let's talk, actually, we probably should talk the business itself. So tell us about the programs that you were running in the business.
So we were doing children's either after school classes, so in the STEM arena, so that could have been anything from game design, coding, animation, you name it. There's 300 courses. The wide range is really, really wide. And then we were doing in-school time sessions where we were going in and actually being the instructor in the classroom and taking over those periods where they should have been learning IT and things like that in the schools, because as I've learned this in the US, and we had the conversation yesterday over here, it's exactly the same anywhere I've been in the world. You're asking teachers who are already overstretched to learn a subject which is rapidly advancing, and they've got their core priorities to do at the same time.
It's like you learning German.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. It was a really bad idea.
No, it's hard. You're not going to learn it part-time.
Definitely. And it's kind of that round peg, square hole system, isn't it? And we can be a little bit more personal. We can get on the ground. We can adapt the learning to the children because we've got time, whereas the school teachers don't, and they have to be masters of everything. So for us, we jumped in. We managed to do it. And we grew that way. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it.
The coaching would have helped. I mean, coaching kids is good fun.
It's good fun. It can be tough at times.
Yeah.
Especially when they get a little bit excited, bring the room back down sometimes. Yeah. I remember on the first classes I ran, the deputy head teacher walking in going, "What on earth is going on here?" Okay, I get it. All right, we'll bring the noise down a bit. They're having fun. I'm sorry. But, you learn, you make mistakes, don't you?
Do you guys have the cane over there?
No. So things must have ramped up quite quickly. So let's go. So you're a franchisee launching in COVID. Mm-hmm. You've obviously become quite a successful franchisee quite quickly, because ultimately 2 years later you bought out the franchisor.
Yeah, July 21, I was sat in a bar.
Yeah.
And we'd just completed, or just halfway through our third year actually, as the brand. We'd just broken the 300,000 barrier for us, which is amazing. And I've sat, and as frequently as there's a common story for me now. I seem to do all deals from bars and restaurants, and
I've spent a bit of time with you in Vegas, so I get that.
it just seems to
There's
be
a lot of
thing.
bars involved.
All the contracts seem to
Yeah.
be signed at a bar, just the timing lines up. But we had the conversation, and Nigel in the brand at the time was kind of on his kind of exit journey. He was on his move to South Africa. He wanted to work with elephants out there and do some fundraising for them and those kind of things. And went,
Wow.
do you want to do it? You know, and for me, I looked at it and went, yes. Didn't even think twice. You know, it was the right thing to do. You could see the potential of the brand. So by the time we gone through the paperwork, let's not talk about banks. They're a nightmare.
Yeah.
Carry that through.
How many franchises? So you were 12 when you were number 12, you said?
Yep.
And so what are we up to 2 years later?
13, 14.
Oh, not many. Yeah.
Yeah, so
hadn't
there was
really
two
grown.
others
Yep.
that came in behind me. 2 of those came in behind me and then left. So yeah, we left at 14.
Yep.
And
And
then-
your numbers out of the 12 or 13, have you got to pretty high numbers compared to the others?
so the ceiling when I joined, no one had broken the 100,000 barrier.
And you're at 300. Okay, you're going okay. Yep. And so you bought the franchisor out?
Yeah, so officially in November 21.
Yep.
Took control. You know, we did that, and it was great. I've just loved every bit of it. You know, it was a little bit tired at the time, so the website needed updating, and some of the branding needed updating. You know, anything that any new person would want to come in and do anyway. You know, just put your own personal spin on it. But we kind of set the path.
How did your other franchisees go? Like as one of their own coming in, it's like, you know, the captain of the football team becomes the coach, and all of a sudden he's the boss, and your relationship changes. Did you have much of a relationship with the other franchisees before, or were you all kind of?
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah.
One did not like me taking over.
Yeah.
He was probably the top dog before I got there.
Yeah.
And he threw his toys out the pram and left very, very quickly. But
Because he wasn't offered it, or
Bit of the green monster.
I think probably a bit of both.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, do you have a lot of like franchisee group like conferences or interactions with the other franchisees
Yeah,
in the first
so-
2 years?
For me, I try to spend quite a bit of time getting to know people.
Yeah.
So we do the annual conference every year. You know, that's kind of fair.
Even as 12 franchisees. Yeah.
Yeah, even as 12. Why not?
Because not all franchise systems here do that until they kind of get to a critical
I think
mass.
it's really important to get out and
absolutely.
meet people. As we've kind of grown now, we've kind of adapted that approach. We still do the annual one, but I kind of do like North and Middle and South meets. So the one-to-ones are lovely, but we've got a couple of brands now. So for me to get out and do that, I'd be out on the road every week, and my time would just be non-existent to actually try and do strategy and things like that. So we do like a northern meet, a southern meet, and that works really nicely because actually, whilst we're getting those one-to-one kind of interactions in, because it's much smaller groups, they're getting to know each other at the same time. And I genuinely think that's some of the most valuable stuff that we can do is just getting them talking.
I agree. 100% feeding off each other.
Yeah, definitely. Like the northern group especially are just, they talk for England.
But
So.
what was the States doing at that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So when did you discover there was actually a US part of the business? Oh, yeah.
What's in this file?
So I always knew about the States to start with. The history of the brand meant that in 2006, all of the US franchisees were mutually terminated. So at the time, there was over 300 of them. So I always knew
300?
Yeah, I was like, there was loads of them.
Did it start there originally or in the
Yeah, it
US?
started in Houston, in Texas, 1983.
We have a problem, Houston.
Yeah. So I grew out of there. And actually, the training centre was there. So before my time, I was one of the first ones that didn't actually. Everyone else had to go to the States to go and be trained. In the training centre was still kind of group or operated by the franchisees out there.
Yep.
Which was great, nice experience. They all talk about the amazing steak they went and had in Texas, as you would expect. And they've come back and then had some like UK adaptation on it. So the States right now there's probably about 9 left. And I think that's what happens. When people lose their way, they lose their guidance and, lose that person pulling them together, the brand kind of just dissolves. And, some of those people would have probably hit retirement. And
So you end up with the trademark though
Yes.
for the US. And so you've then, over the last couple of years, been re-engaging with those 9.
Yeah, so we're re-engaging with those 9 now to see the different ways we can bring the brand back. As we know with the States, it's a complicated market. And, it's for the UK to go back to the States, it's really, really tough. One, they price everything through the roof. And then the brokerage channel is completely different to anything we're used to in the UK.
Yep.
And it doesn't quite sit right with me actually at the same time.
There's so many layers and so many people clipping the ticket on the way through.
Like it's a really competitive space, isn't it?
Hugely competitive. But we've got such a great history out there. I personally think it would take much to bring us back and spin it up. So it's definitely something we're looking at. We're just revolving around the different strategies to do that, like we've done out here. Do you go down the master route? Do you go area developer? Do you run it centrally? Do you joint venture it? There's so many different things you can do, but we're just gathering all that.
And what about like why do we talked a bit about this, when you were out here, but why come to Australia as another market? What did you see as the opportunity out here?
The beach.
Yeah, sailing's good, not bad either. It's sunny.
This is
we speak sort of the same language.
Yeah, on that side of it. Yeah, get some words wrong. There's football, soccer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a few others. But it's a market that's very, very similar to the UK.
Yeah,
in terms of the education pattern. So what we do fits in really, really nicely. The education system is very, very similar, apart from the terms being different. Everything else, you have the same challenges we do. So for us, it's just like a natural step. And the opportunity arose, and last year, actually, that was my first ever visit to Australia, and I loved it. And I thought, actually, we've got to make this work out here.
Yeah.
So that was the whole journey, I guess. It was, and rightly or wrongly, my kind of roadmap is where it's got a nice beach. That's what sells it to my wife. Where we're going next.
So Jamaica.
Interesting growth strategy.
Yeah. So that's good.
That's good.
And as a franchisor, we before we talk about the other brands and stuff, is what have you found as the biggest challenge? Like, what has not worked out the way you thought it might, or as a franchisor? Because there's all been a pretty rapid journey. Like you've gone from franchisee to franchisor in 2 years, and now global franchisor.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I've probably faced is not everyone works at my pace. So I'm 10 steps ahead, and franchisees typically always want to do the best, but they get comfortable at a point very, very quickly. And for me, I'm going, you've only just like saturated less than 10% of your territory. But what are we doing with the rest? So it's definitely getting on the journey and bringing people on the journey rather than, actually everyone's going to do it at the same pace as me. So there's definitely been adaptation that I've made. Hopefully they like it, and when they see this, I'm sure.
What is interesting, because you probably, given you were quite young, you probably didn't run teams of people as an employee. I imagine when you were in sales.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, you had a team?
Yeah, I had a
big sales
at the
team,
largest point, I probably had 150.
Oh, really?
That's
a big team.
They were an amazing team.
Yeah.
But what is really consistent, actually, and this has been every job I've ever done, it's always been the same. You have your 20% of your team, which are absolute superstars, but 10% of those you do need a big broom behind. They do cause a bit of mess along the way. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, the 60% in the middle.
Yeah, the big bag.
Just get on with the job. They don't cause you any dramas whatsoever. And then there's the 10-20% at the bottom that needs some extra support or another plan.
Which is in franchising, like it's not a bad thing to lose a few on the way regularly to try and work out how to get the 20, because you get dragged down, don't you? Like if you're 20%, you spend all your time managing that 20%, well, probably sometimes both ends. Sometimes you have to try and manage the high performers because they're not necessarily following your system.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There's always a strong argument for letting the bottom 20 look after itself, because you just can't change those people.
It's hard. Or get him out of the system, though.
Yeah. And so there's either a plan that you need to have together that you're going to come through it, or we have to have that conversation and go, maybe this isn't right. Yeah.
We are going to do, so just a couple of things that you've bought other brands as well. So let's talk about that. And then we're going to finish off with some tips for franchisors. So I'll let you think about that. But at the same time, tell us a little bit about your the other businesses that you've got as part of the group now.
Yeah. So the first one we took on was ComputerXplorers. We didn't buy this one, we created it.
Yep.
So off a conversation I was having with a head teacher, we were stood in the playground watching the wraparound care going on outside. And then there was a sports company at the back who were doing some sports program. And sports is a really saturated market in the UK. It's it would be tough to try and break in Genuinely.
It's a shame English people aren't that good at sport. So then they play so
We
much.
have
Our moments, all right? We have our moments. Only once in every few years we'll do something.
You did
and
well
then-
at the London Olympics a few. Yeah.
But yeah, so we looked at that and had the conversation. He went, I wish you guys would do this.
Sport as well as
Because
computer.
the way you do it is fantastic. Then we kind of looked and went, well, why can't we? And it kind of goes with my whole Explorer Group theme, actually. There are lots of different children's services things we can do underneath that.
Yep.
And as part of the vision, we went, well, actually, let's do it. Let's go out there, let's create the curriculum, let's follow our methodology, let's just keep it in the same fashion. So that was the first one we took on board, and it was kind of open as a bolt-on for the original franchisees, Computer Explorers, to take on. Some of them have, some are still on that journey, and it's also available for anyone external to that. But it's once you're in the school with Computer Explorers, it's easy to bring the second one in.
Yep.
But it's definitely a journey that we get on with people.
And then you realise that you were printing a lot of paper, so printing.
Yeah.
Not
and then,
related to kids.
absolutely not. This one kind of, and I've kind of got this theory that when you're considering expansion, actually, what's your biggest costs at the same time? Can you lose that cost or do something with that cost to make it more efficient? And the opportunity came up via Nigel at the same time, actually, to take over a print and design brand. Now, I'd always looked at this one and thought there's so much more that can be done with that. And the print industry is dormant. I've spent quite a long time researching it, and everyone's doing the same things. So I looked at him and went, well, actually, all we need to do is just tweak that a little bit down there a little bit and add these new bits over here. And we kind of got a market-leading product that no one else is doing in this sector. So why not? So we took over that officially May last year. While I was out here, I signed the contract actually in the bar.
Oh, good God.
in the hotel in Darling Harbour. So
Yep. So that's for an Australian print business.
UK.
Yeah.
UK, but the brand does exist over here. So
Yeah.
I own the rights to Quick Copy, Kall Kwik now, everywhere except Australia.
So is Australia separately owned? And it's not a master.
It was a master at the time. So when it was originally owned by the US, it was mastered by Matt Penfold.
Yep. Here.
Over here, and he's run it ever since, and he's doing a great job of it.
So he still has Australia.
He still has
and
Australia.
then you have the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But there's not a direct relationship with you and the Australian brand.
No, not at the moment. Fostering.
Yep.
Well, I'm starting to speak to the guys now, so hopefully we'll build something together that works at the same time. We must be able to do things to help each other.
Yep.
So there's definitely a good
Good
path
on you,
there.
mate.
And tips?
Tips,
Yeah.
baby.
Oh, tips.
As a franchisor, if you're looking, talking to some emerging franchisors.
Yeah, I absolutely have a plan.
Yeah.
Have that plan set out. There's so many times I speak to different people and they know where they want to get to, what the goal is, but they don't know the steps to get there. What
And,
they actually need to achieve
articulating it to people around them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Franchisees, staff.
Get them
yeah.
on board. I call it getting on the train. Everyone is, we're going to take everyone on the train with us. If they don't like it, they're going to get off at some point. But this is where the train is going. This is where we're going to get to. And we will be out at the top. We will be the go-to. So you can get on board and you can come with us, and we're not going to get it right every time. But if we're not trialing, we're not failing at doing stuff, we're not experimenting enough to see what's going to be the winner right at the top. So absolutely have a plan. Don't be afraid to fail at different things. But ultimately, just communicate with the franchisees. They are so forgiving. They genuinely want the same as you. I'll just bring them on that path. Involve them. Get their feedback.
It's not that hard.
It's really not. It really isn't.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We have had the pleasure of spending some time with you since you've been out this time, and we could go for a lot longer in this, but unfortunately we don't have any more time. But thank you very much for coming in and flying all the way out from Southampton to be a guest on our podcast. Thank you for listening to our BDC Partners podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll get better at that one day. Thanks a lot, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Cheers, guys.
Stuart. Good on you, mate.